Hello, and welcome to Legal Management Talk, the official podcast of the Association of Legal Administrators. I'm your host, Justin Eskenazi. Client guidelines are key to a firm's operations as they ensure both the client and the firm know what is expected in their relationship. But they can also be complex and hard to keep up with, putting the firm at risk of breaching their contract. Our guest today, Andre Wouansi, founder and CEO of Accurate Legal Billing, is here to help us understand the importance of complying with client guidelines and to chat about the new tools that can help you do just that. Welcome, Andre. It's great to have you on.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for having me.
So I want to start with, what are the most common requests that you've seen in client guidelines, and how have some firms struggled to comply with them?
Thank you. Very good question. We see in areas of a request in the guideline, and I'm going to give you a small example. Prior to 2023, and I had not seen things such as specific tasks being assigned to the associates at the firm. I think a lot of firms are going to be caught by surprise when they look at the new guidelines that are coming out. What is it that the attorney can do that a partner cannot do? In 2022, they were able to do the same task, get paid for, but in 2023 and beyond, they're no longer going to be able to do that. And also, some of the issues that we come across quite often with the law firm are things like administrative tasks. You do something, and then the e-billing auditors will come back and say, well, this is administrative. Or you're an attorney, you do something, and they say, no, this should be done by a paralegal. Or you work, and they tell you that the time spent on this particular task is excessive. So these are the kind of challenging issues that we see with the law firm week in, week out.
Have you found that a lot of firms have been challenged by kind of assigning tasks to various to different partners or associates or paralegals, especially with kind of the staffing ups and downs that we've seen in the last couple of years?
Yes, and I think yes, and it's becoming more of a bigger issue because the association of a task with a group of individual at the firm. So also means that from the client perspective, they are trying to manage their legal spend. Okay, so if this task can be done by a paralegal instead of an attorney, then it means that they will end up cutting the spend as opposed to all the way around. So it has been channeled to not to diminish. They make it clear to the law firm they don't want to diminish the quality of the service that's been given to the insured. Okay, it should not compromise on the quality. It's clear to the law firm you cannot compromise on the quality, but they channeled some of those tasks to a lower pay grade people at the firm, and this also trying to help them manage the legal spend. So yes, it's a big issue, and it's something that I don't think is going to go away anytime soon. As I mentioned earlier, we're seeing now being very specific, which were not before prior to 2023. I've never seen this in a guideline, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I've never seen it in a guideline where there are specific tasks to be performed by the associates. We had tasks, and we always had tasks to be performed by the paralegal, but not the associates. So things are changing. These guidelines are changing. New things are coming into the guideline each year, and firms should be ready to embrace them and work with them.
Right. Now, something I'm sure is a very scary concept to a lot of those in the legal industry. What are the risks of missing an instruction in a client's contract?
Well, a good point you raised there, Justin, because the client guidelines are now quite very specific on what are the consequences of not following through the guidelines. I can give you a couple of examples. If you're not complying with their guidelines, it is clearly in the guidelines that has been signed by these firms. So it's not something that the firm can back out and say, hey, I didn't agree to that. If your panel on that firm, if you're on that carrier or that TPA or that self-insure, if you're a panel firm, you had agreed to be in compliance with the guideline. And the consequences for not complying are clearly stated in the guideline. For example, you will not be given more cases if you continuously not complying with the guidelines. The rate increase, your rate is not going to increase. Your firm rate is not going to be increased. Third, the relationship, you're not going to have a good relationship with them. Because if they see that and you're not complying with the guideline, these e-billing companies continuously making 10, 20% reduction on your bills, then it's an issue. Because from the client perspective, they're saying, had they not utilized the services of this e-billing company, this firm will have charged them 20%. If you have an insurance carrier who's spending $1 billion on legal spend, what 20% of that? If they're spending 100, what's that? So the number are really, really big. And I don't think that if firm doesn't respect the guideline, they have a lot to answer for. And also they could be thrown off the panel. So it's clearly stated in the guideline. You don't respect the guidelines, they will throw you off the panel. They will not increase your rate. They will not give you new cases. So there are consequences. Yeah.
Have you found that word of mouth makes a big difference? As in, for instance, a firm does something wrong, and then sure, maybe they lose the business of that client. But have you found that clients are then telling other potential clients that that maybe this firm is someone that they should be wary of?
Yes, and in many occasions, when you request to join a panel, right? So if you're a firm and the relationship partner requests to join a panel, quite often in the industry, this carrier might also want to know a little bit about this firm. So they would go to peers and they would say, hey, who did you utilize for this? When you had this kind of case, which firm did you go to? So also they will inquire about the firm. So if they inquire and then somebody say, well, this firm didn't represent us very well, or this firm is not complying with our guideline, or any negative feedback, like anywhere, chances are you're not going to get on that panel. And I know that many of these law firms, the relationship partner, they're working so hard to get on this panel. They're working day and night to get on the panel of this carrier, because you get on a good panel, we're talking about several millions of dollars that you will get. So, and if you get on a panel and you're a good firm, you put all these things into practice and you're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you have a good relationship, you will generate more cases.
Gotcha. So on the flip side, how can ensuring that clients' standards and guidelines are being met, how can that help your firm in the long run?
Well, ensuring that the client's compliance are met, I would say, it's not easy for the law firm. I also understand from the law firm perspective, it takes a lot, because imagine, Justin, for a second, you're an associate at a firm and you're working for 4 different carriers. These 4 different carriers, although you're doing the same type of activities for those carriers, they're going to require you, of this attorney, to bill 4 different ways. So it's a bit of a burden on attorneys to say, oh, am I working for this carrier? Am I working for that one? How should I be billing for this? How should I be not billing for that? Is it something I should be billing for? Is it something that requires prior approval? Because there's a vast amount of information that you need to provide to make an entry compliant. And these vary from one carrier to another, although you're doing the exact same kind of work for both of them. But the way of billing, the information that is required is different from one carrier to another. So if a company, if a law firm is forward thinking and say, look, we need to bring a solution, not only for this year, we're looking forward, because these e-billing companies and the billing guidelines are not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, any law firm that you speak to in the United States and outside the United States, they can tell you that the number of billing guidelines or the number of clients asking them to start submitting their bills online to a third-party tool increases by the tune of 30 or 40% every year. So it's just a matter of time before all your clients will be requiring you to submit all your bills to a third-party vendor. So unless you find a way to handle that or not putting all that burden on your attorneys, then if you don't find a way, it's going to become a big issue. It might not be an issue for you a lot today, maybe because 30% of your firm clients are only the one asking you to do that. But if you look back, you see that yes, last year it wasn't 30%, it was maybe 10. And this year it might be 30, 40, 50%. Where are you going to be 5 years from now? Are you going to wait to when you get 100% of your client to start dealing with it? It might be too late. And also, if you track how much money you lose every year in the hands of this e-billing company, and not only the money you lose, but the time that it takes on your attorney, the burden you put in on your attorney, because this is the thing, Justin. An attorney who is entering time today. Let's say we are 1st of February. An attorney worked on a task today. Submit that time entry. That time is going to get billed, maybe by the 10th or 15th of March. It gets billed by 10 or 15, and then the e-billing companies going to review that maybe by the end of March, first weeks of April. You can see that there's a time lapse of about 8 to 9 weeks from the time that the attorney performed the task to the time that the bills is actually reviewed. Imagine 9 weeks later, they come back, the e-billing company say, hey, you did not have approval to do this task. All the time that you spend on this task is excessive. And they're going to turn around and say, hey, how many pages of the document did you review, for example, because your time seems excessive. Now you ask this person to go back 9 weeks later to ask for this kind of information, which is very, very time consuming for this attorney. Now, had you had an appropriate technology in place that can allow you to do this kind of work, allow your attorney to comply with this guideline, then they don't have to deal with this compliance weeks and weeks later. Right? So forward-thinking law firms should be looking at AI tool out there. There are several AI tools out there that can help you to ensure compliance as your attorney enter time and the compliance can be done. So, and we also have one of those tools that can also help law firms to do the same.
So I want to get back to the AI tools in just a second, but I am glad you brought up, billing and keeping time, because that's so important to, administrators. What else can administrators do to help keep client guidelines manageable while still delivering the desired levels of service?
Good question. I would say, Justin, honestly, is technology because the guideline, if you look at the guideline last year or 2 years ago, some of these clients changed the guideline 18 months or every other year. The guidelines have been changed. And the volume, the number of pages of the guideline keep increasing, right? So the more burden being put on the attorneys. How can you keep up with that? You're not going to keep asking your attorney to review this or do training. Training doesn't help. People think that they can train their attorneys and that will be fine. I would say yes, train them, but they're going to be fine for 1 month, for 2 months. And guess what? 2 months later, they're going to go back to what they were doing before. So the best way to do this, and this is my advice to any firm administrator or CFO, use the technology. Today, you have technology that can help you do that. And that technology, the good thing about using AI to do this is that it's consistent. Okay. The consistency of that technology, it will give you that satisfaction. If you use human being to review this, the human being is not, we're going to miss certain things. But using AI to do this, not only you get the consistency, the accuracy is far beyond what a human being can do. Second, the technology out there, just like the one that ALB built, that can help law firms to even do their time entry and also learn because the technology had to keep up with the changes of the guideline. Don't go to a company that has an aging software. Go to people who are building technology that can change with time. And that's key. Technology today can even study or learn from the attorney as they're doing their time entry so that it can help them correct or make this prediction or correction in the future without relying too much on the attorney. No attorney are trained. There's not courses in law school about billing. They come into the real world and they face with these guidelines. They don't get trained at school. So give them the right tool to do their work. By the way, this is not the work that they want to do. Nobody enjoy billing. I've never seen an attorney who say, hey, I enjoy recording my time. They enjoy the work that they do. They enjoy defending their client. But when it comes to billing, that's what they, they don't want to do most of that. And also when they do it, there's issue that comes back with it, right? That, oh, you have to fix this, or you spend more time on this and all of this. So give them the right tool, find the technologies out there that can really help you and help your attorney in the long run.
So I think that's really cool that technology can now help attorneys do all these things. What would you say to people who think, AI is still so new. I don't know if I trust it to understand, complex things in the legal world. What would your response to that be?
I would say, yes, I agree. AI is new, but you have to start somewhere, right? And the type of task that the AI is doing today, they're not tasks that can compromise in terms of maybe client attorney privilege or anything like that. These are mundane tasks that this is billing. And during the e-billing process, you don't have data that are confidential that for client attorney privilege. These are routine tasks. So I would say that if you worry about giving these kind of routine tasks to AI, then what purpose would you want to use AI for? You would want to use AI to take these tasks that your attorney do not want to do. And yes, as we also learning about this, as we enhancing our AI, we're probably going to get maybe sometime in the future into this gray area, but I don't think we're there yet. So people should not be over concerned, especially in the legal e-billing world. I'm not talking for all the things that the AIs are doing in the legal industry, but I'm saying for billing purposes, there shouldn't be any concern in that sense, because the nature of the work and the type of things that's being disclosed should not be alarming, or should not raise any alarm bell or anything like that, or put any confidential information in the hands of people. You're just asking the AI, or you're just using AI to do things that you will otherwise done manually.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Now, one of the keys to a strong firm-client relationship is keeping regular track of metrics such as, budget adherence and staffing ratios. What else should administrators monitor, and how can they best measure those parameters? How much can they use technology to do that?
That's a very, very good question, Justin. In my 2 decades of working with carriers and TPA, the self-insured corporation, they gathered, or they continue to gather, a vast amount of data and metrics on their panel firm. So as a law firm, you sometimes ask yourself, how did this carrier, or how does your client measure your firm? How do they measure firm in the same location? They do those measures, they measure firm based on those metrics. Now, what type of metrics should you be gathering to share with them? I always encourage law firm, and especially the billing relationship partner, to provide metrics to their client. Not just metric that makes you look good. Show the other metrics that doesn't make you look good. That will give them a sense of that trust. It will build a trust between you and your client. And guess what? Somebody trusts you is going to give you more work. And I can give you a couple of examples of those metrics. You mentioned there closing budgeting. Very important for them to talk about budget, because the budget for the law firm means something else to what it means for the client. To the law firm, they're just looking at the budget and saying, well, they're asking us to give a number, you give a number. But to the client, for the client perspective, they want to know what the legal spend is going to be. Why? Because they have to put a pocket of money to cover those costs. Now, if your budget is not accurate, then from a client perspective, you're costing them money. A law firm doesn't understand how they're costing these people money. Well, you ask them to put, let's say your budget was $100,000. These clients are going to go in, they're going to put into a reserves account, maybe $80,000 or $75,000. And at the end, you only spend $20,000. From the firm perspective, they're going to say, hey, we saved you money. We told you it was going to be $100,000, but we end up only billing for 25. But from the client perspective, they're looking at it and say, you cost me $50,000. You made me put forward another $50,000 that I didn't need to. That's how they're looking at it. And they're tracking these firm budget on the monthly basis. They want to see you, how you are adhering to the budget, to the point that if you don't have sufficient budget, they will not even accept your bills. Your invoice will be rejected. So budget is a big thing for the law firm, for the clients. Second, closing ratio. How quickly do you close your cases? Any open case in the eyes of your client looks as a potential for money being going out. This is just a pocket of money. It's a case for you guys to keep billing on, that they're going to keep paying on these cases. How quickly you closing your cases? Another one, staffing ratio. We mentioned at the beginning of this podcast about group of people performing different type of tasks. It's very important for them. in order to control their costs, they need to take some of these tasks or standard tasks or routine tasks being performed by a junior level associate or paralegal, because they're going to spend less. So they want to know at your firm who is doing what group of people are doing what. And whether you provide that metric to them or not, guess what? They have it. So firms have interest in gathering and providing these type of metrics. Because when you do, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a better relationship. I always say this to firm relationship partner. I always say this. Look, if I were to show you those metrics that you're going to gather, I'm not going to give you something that your client doesn't have. They do have those metrics, but what they do not expect is your firm gathering the same metrics as they're gathering, because they're working with third-party companies, these e-billing vendors. They're working with them to gather these metrics so that they can better manage their panel counsel. Imagine walking into a meeting and the agenda or whatever this client want to discuss with you, you present it to them. They have nothing to say to you because you are assessing your firm to a higher standard. And they would believe whatever you would tell them, because you are assessing your firm to the same standard as they're assessing all the firm on their panel. They will be surprised that you're gathering those same metrics. And this will lead to a better relationship with your client if you were to gather all these metrics. So I would say to firm, please, there are probably 3 or 4 that I would say to always gather. Make sure that your budget, the legal spend, make sure you're tracking your budget against your legal spend. Make sure that you're tracking your closing ratio, how quickly you're closing the cases, show those metrics. Your staffing ratio, show that with them. And even if you only show those 3 metrics with them, this will be very important, and this will lead to a great relationship with your client, which will lead to more cases being coming to you. And I say this, just on the same note, I say this to firm partners quite often. I always say to them, listen, working with your client for 20 years, I learned a lot. For example, do you know that your client at any one point of time has so many cases that they need to give out? You'd be sitting there at a law firm thinking, oh, this client, they're not giving me cases. Maybe they don't have cases. They have hundreds of cases to be allocated, to be assigned to law firm, and they don't get assigned. I used to provide metrics to firms just to show to clients, carriers and TPA, just to show them how many cases have been set up and not yet assigned to any law firm. So there's so many things here that if you have a better relationship with them, then you could tap into these new cases, that pending assignment.
Oh, that sounds great. And now finally, you mentioned at the top how there was such a drastic change in how guidelines were written heading into this year.
Yes.
Now, looking forward, do you see any additional changes on the horizon, and what might those be?
Definitely yes, because if you look back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the guideline was 17 pages. Some of the initial guideline that I participated in drafting, there were 7 pages. It grew to 17. Now we see some guideline 50 pages. I can only anticipate that with changes in the nature of the work that's been performed, and also, the world is evolving. We have new challenges. We have new thing being thrown at these lawyers on a daily basis. So e-billing companies and their clients, what they do, they have a team, a legal team, and their job is to review these guidelines and provide the changes. For example, I have a major carrier who released their latest guideline towards the end of November, with effective 1st of January 2023. There were about 40 changes. And this was just, the previous one was only 18 months old. 18 months ago, they releases the latest one. The 20, well, it was what, 2022. And by 1st of January 2023, that was late 2022, by, late 2020, and 1st of January 2023, they have a new guideline. And this new guideline has about 40 different changes. So I can only assume that based on, what the industry has been for the past 2 decades, that there will be changes. It's not going to be static, because also the way that the attorneys bill changes, right? The practice area, the things that they're working on changes. And the e-billing company have to keep up with those changes. And they're noticing that, okay, today the attorneys are using XYZ terms to describe this work that they perform. Okay, is that in compliance? Does that meet with the guideline compliance? If it doesn't, what changes are they going to bring to alert the attorney to make sure that they either stick to this or restrict them from doing what they're doing, how they're billing. So I will tell you for certain, Justin, that there will be changes. I can't tell you every single change that's going to happen. Today, we're seeing changes where a law firm now have a different task being performed by a different group. Before, it was just a paralegal. Today, we have the attorneys, the associates. I'm sure that tomorrow or after tomorrow, you're going to have the partners being defined, what exactly a partner could do, what exactly a senior partner can do. So I can only see an evolution to what we have today. Looking back and seeing what has happened over the past decade, I can only anticipate that going forward, what's going to happen. And also, let us not forget, these e-billing companies are also using AI. Okay, a lot of them are deploying AI into the e-billing. So compliance is going to get tougher and tougher for the attorneys, unless you're using an AI tool to ensure compliance from the law firm perspective. If this e-billing company continuously deploy AI to review your bill, guess what? Their accuracy of catching your attorney's non-compliant entry will only increase. So law firm has interest in embracing technology because from the e-billing perspective, they have been developing and evolving in the areas of AI for guideline compliance.
Gotcha. Well, thanks so much for being here, Andre. I think, I hope a lot of us are walking away with, a much clearer idea of how to manage client guidelines and, and the tools that we can use to help do that. So, thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you for having me this morning. I really appreciate the time with you, and looking forward to continue supporting the law firms in their, in a view of getting the guideline compliance and prevent this e-billing reduction and the time wasted on invoice appeal, because that's a big deal. They're spending so much time and for collections and invoice appeal, and we can help them with that. And I'm trying to do my bit in trying to help them in that area. So thank you again for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks to our viewers, listeners, and subscribers for tuning in. If you like the show, please subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode. And as always, you can learn more about ALA at alanet.org. Until next time.